like to share all my best meditation tricks because that helps the process along. These are like golden nuggets. You know, years and years it took me to come to these ridiculous little realizations. But one is, which is really true, and when I sort of discovered this in my own practice, I was kind of shocked and humiliated and overjoyed. You can make this as easy as you want it to be. So when you go into the practice of no problem, just decide that you're going to let it be easy. You're not going to make it easy, because that's hard, but you're going to let it be easy. You're not going to insist that it's difficult. Sometimes we unconsciously believe that if it's not difficult, it can't really be the real thing. And we have a certain addiction to the struggle and the challenge of doing it, and then we get to, come out the other end and feel victorious. There's no points for that either. I guarantee you that it's more effective to just let it be easy. And sometimes when life is easy, we make a problem out of it. We go, oh, life is easy. I know what happens when life is easy. Something bad happens. So I better make something bad happen quick so life won't be easy anymore. And of course it's true, when life gets easy, something bad happens. Not because life was easy, but because bad things occasionally happen. They happen when life is hard, and they happen when life is good. That's just the way life is. A lot of you've heard, some of you, I'm sure, have heard the expression spiritual bypassing, which essentially means trying to, it means that you're usually unconsciously using your spiritual life. You're living your spiritual practice or your spiritual life with the assumption that somehow that's going to make life good. So you're unconsciously trying to avoid things that are bad by using spiritual practice to be. And so there's just things you have to relax around. So one is you can't become more awake only in the good direction. You can become deluded only in the good direction. But you can't become more awake, because awakeness is like the aperture of a camera. When the lens opens, the top doesn't just open, right? When it opens, the whole thing gets wider. So that's true of the awakening of consciousness. If you're going to awaken, you're just going to get wider. You're going to see more of everything. Not just more of the things you want to see more of and less of the things you don't want to see at all. So there's a kind of brutal moment when, at least for me, and probably for some of us here, but definitely for me, a brutal moment where you realize that the fantasy you had about what the end goal of a spiritual life was actually a fantasy. And the reality is much better. The reality is solid, and it includes everything. And the fantasy is overly weighted to the positive and just not stable. So you can make this easy, and it can be as easy as you want it to be. And to do that, you have to be willing to endure whatever happens, whether it's good or bad. But easy is different than good and bad. We usually equate easy with good, but it's not. Easy means available and willing to embrace everything that occurs as it occurs, regardless of whether it's good and bad. What makes things hard is when we don't want certain things, and then it's hard because while we're trying to go this way, we're also trying to push this off, so there's all this control going on underneath. So yes, keep going through whatever is the fear and make this as easy as possible. I find that I don't do this on purpose, but I tend to give out information bits at a time. I think because as we sit here longer, then my own consciousness relaxes and then more things come. So at first, I'm more likely to say, this can be easy, which is a little scary, as you said. But then it gets even more scary, because at some point, I'll start to say, this can't be hard. And if you experience it as hard, it's because you're pretending it's hard, because it can't be. Because we're only talking about living, and living isn't hard. It doesn't even require us to do anything. And then you really have to face fear, because it's scary to play a game that you can win. It's terrifying to play a game you can't lose. And this is a game you can't lose. And so you really have to embrace something in yourself. You know, and you'll see this in the meditation. When I say, for instance, let everything be the way it is, you know, and then you might go, ooh, I could do that. I'll just let everything be the way it is. You're still doing something. But when you get to the place where you realize, oh, I can't do anything about things being the way they are, because that's the way they already are anyway. That gets scary, because then you don't have any control. But that's the way it actually is. That's the way life is anyway. It can almost be hard to believe. Really? Is it this easy? Could it have been this easy the whole time? That's another thing you have to live with if you really allow this to be as easy as it is, especially those of us who have been meditating a long time. It's harder for us because you can get to a place where you realize this is much easier than you ever thought, and then you have to live through there's a certain level of humiliation of like, God, I've been making this so hard for 30 years. You know? And it was really this easy the whole time, but it's worth it to just suck it up and go, yeah, whatever. The challenge for me as someone who's teaching something that's this easy is finding a way to convince people that they actually need me. It's like, you know, teaching a class in breathing. So here I go. I'm going to convince you that you still need me. As easy as this is, because it really is as easy as it is. It's actually easier than you think. However easy you think it is, it's easier than that. In fact, at some point you're going to realize that what we're talking about as meditation is exactly what you've been doing since the moment you were born. And it will be what you're doing until the moment you die. And maybe before you were born and maybe after you die. And there's literally nothing you can do about it. It's easier than anything else you can possibly imagine. Because we're just talking about being. Being is really easy. You're not doing it. I don't know who's doing it, but they're doing a great job and I'm the beneficiary. You know, so in terms of that, you don't need me at all. But what gets tricky is we have so many ways of fooling ourselves into thinking this is harder than it is. And then it can be useful to have someone to bounce things off of. And it can also be scary because we live inside of a set of assumptions that doesn't support this level of ease of being. In fact, it doesn't think this will work. Our current operating system operates on an assumption that problem solving is the kind of energy system, you know. So often when you start to realize how easy this can be, you think, well, I can't live my whole life that way. If my whole life were that easy, then what would I do? I would just kind of sit on the couch and watch television. But it's interesting because it betrays an assumption of our society that somehow the only motivator that exists is some kind of fear-driven sense of deficiency. That if there's something wrong, then I get the energy to make it right. But if everything's right, I'm just going to sit down and do nothing. It doesn't, you know, there's no belief that there might be something beyond just things getting right that could start calling us forward. You know, there's no belief, if we find a way to be content with the way things are, new possibilities might open up that would be more compelling. So Ultimately, the idea is that this whole endeavor of learning how to be content is not an end in itself. It's the beginning, because it allows us to discover a different source of energy, one that's compelled by new possibilities rather than compelled by deficiencies. Let it be so easy that it's scary. Because then everybody's going to have let go right from the start, which is another golden nugget of meditation. It all happens in the first instant. Everything happens like that. Nothing ever happens over time in meditation. You think it does. All that happens over time is you're getting ready for that. But when that happens, it's always in an instant. So just let that be the first minute. Allow it to be easy. And you think, well, how can I allow it to be easy? Don't make a problem. Because if you don't make a problem, it's actually really easy. No matter what happens, no matter what you say, no matter how much you get lost in a problem in there and how horrible it is and how, just don't make a problem out of it. It's still easy. It's literally like unplug for the time. Between the bells, you just totally unplugged. And then that's it. Then it's all easy. So we're going to just sit for a few short minutes. It's going to be complete. I'm going to even make it easier by making it short. And just let it be super easy, just like those first 5 seconds we did at the beginning. And just say, okay, that's how I'm going to do it the whole time. It's just going to be easy, and we're going to go from there. Okay, one more golden nugget. It's kind of a 3-nugget evening. If you really want to make this easy, then when the meditation's done, don't even ask yourself how you did. Just move on. Doesn't matter. There's no reason to keep score.